Hey everybody, it's Tyler Austin from Midgard Strength and Conditioning. Thank you so much for watching. So today I'm going to talk about something that people absolutely love to argue about on the internet, and that is the low bar versus the high bar squat for general strength and conditioning. People spend way too much time arguing about this on the internet. Which one's better, high bar versus low bar, doesn't matter, etc. Again, people spend way too much time arguing about this, and I'm just here to give you my thoughts and opinions on it based on my own coaching experience. And personally, I find my stance on it fairly hard to argue because it's not really an extreme stance, one way or the other, and I think it's fairly objective. So, with that being said, as a general rule, I prefer my clients to do the low bar squat as their primary squatting style. Why? Because they can squat more weight with the low bar squat than they can high bar squat. Why? Well, some people will say it's because you use more muscle mass, and I understand where they're coming from on here, and they're not necessarily wrong. However, I think that's not really a correct way to describe it. The low bar squat and the high bar squat use all the same muscle groups. The high bar squat still uses your quads, still uses your glutes and your hamstrings. However, due to the low bar due to the positioning of the low bar squat, it puts more of the workload on the hips and the glutes than it does on the quads, which the high bar squat puts more emphasis on. And although the quads are a really big, strong muscle group, the glutes are an even bigger and stronger muscle group. So the fact that the low bar squat puts a little bit more of the workload on the glutes, which are a bigger, stronger muscle group than the quads are, this allows you to squat more weight. So it's not that the low bar squat uses more muscle mass than the high bar squat. It's that it puts more of the workload on the bigger muscle group. So that's why that's the primary reason why you're able to squat more weight in a low bar squat than you are in the high bar squat. Also, secondarily, the low bar squat puts the payload, i.e. the barbell, a little bit closer to the hip joint. And this is important because it makes you a little bit more stable. The further away the payload is from the point of rotation, the easier it is to become off balance, and generally the less stable it is. Think about it this way: if you had to balance a weight on a stick, like in your hands, is it easier to balance a weight with a shorter stick or a longer stick? The answer to that's pretty obvious. It's easier to balance a weight and keep it stable with a shorter stick than it is with a longer stick. Why? Again, the longer stick puts that payload further away from the point of rotation. This example would be, your hand, your wrist. So yes, that's secondarily why you can squat more low bar than you can high bar, because it puts the payload a little bit closer to the hip joint. Now, the difference between the low bar and the high bar might only be like 2 inches. However, 2 inches is 2 inches, and that still is fairly significant, particularly when squatting really heavy weight. Now, with that being said, even though I generally prefer my clients to do the low bar squat, I coach a lot of older people, and some of those people have pretty crunchy shoulders due to like injuries and whatnot. And a lot of them can't get into the low bar position, or it's very, very, very uncomfortable for them to do so to the point where it's not worth doing. So those people, I have high bar squat, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. You can get very strong high bar squatting, and generally speaking, is there going to be a massive difference in strength outcomes between your low bar squat and your high bar squat? At least is it enough to like really bitch about? Not really. Now again, I prefer people with low bar squat if they can, because again, they can squat more weight doing so. However, if they can't, it's not a big deal, and certainly is not something to really to complain about. Now, with that being said, diving just deeper and deeper into this here, If you're a post-novice lifter, you really should be doing both, right? Because both are phenomenal. And even though, like if you're my client, you're going to be using the low bar squat as your primary squatting method, the high bar squat is a phenomenal supplemental exercise to that. So a lot of my post-novice clients, you know, in their programming, they're doing both the low bar and the high bar squat. And sometimes we'll run cycles where we are just doing high bar squats. So we get the high bar squat really heavy, really strong. Then when we go back to the low bar squat, their low bar squat flies up because we got their high bar squat really strong, and vice versa. So really, if you're a post-novice lifter, you should really be looking to do both because they're both phenomenal exercises. And the high bar squat is just a phenomenal supplemental exercise to the low bar squat. So that's my thoughts and opinions on this whole debate, really a silly debate between the low bar squat and the high bar squat. I hope you found this video helpful and informative. Please like, subscribe, follow, depending on where you're watching this. If you'd be interested in coaching, be sure to visit my website, midgardstrength.com, and I'd be more than happy to help you. I'm Tyler Austin. Thank you so much for watching.